Let's talk about Jennette McCurdy and her new book called Half His Age. Okay, so I really want to talk about this book because I think it is so well written. I think it's absolutely wonderful. I read it twice, and I kind of want to just give you my honest thoughts and opinions and tell you a little bit more about the story, and then kind of talk about the experience of going to see Jennette McCurdy in person. Okay, cool. So the story is about a 17-year-old girl named Waldo living in Anchorage, Alaska, who falls in love with her high school creative writing teacher. And if it's cool, I think I'm just going to read the summary about the story. Waldo is ravenous, not just horny, though yeah, that too, but ravenous, in this deeper aching way. She's blunt, impulsive, lonely, angry, perceptive. She's hurting. She wants constantly. And the thing she wants most is Mr. Corgi, her creative writing teacher, the married one. The one with a wife, a kid, a mortgage, bills, a whole life already built. The one whose dreams feel kind of stalled, who looks tired, who feels stuck. And Waldo doesn't even fully understand why she wants him. Is it because he's passionate about things she hasn't touched yet? Books, films, ideas, life experience. Is it because he's older and steadier and knows things she doesn't? Or is it simpler than that? Something quieter and more dangerous? Like the fact that they recognize something familiar in each other? Maybe it's just that he sees her and that no one else really does. And I think that's what makes this story so uncomfortable and so authentic, because Waldo isn't chasing him because she's like a broken child. She's chasing him because she's starved. She's starving for this affection, because being seen and being desired, being chosen feels like it's almost like oxygen to her, if that makes sense. I think this book is sharp, funny in a dark, uncomfortable way, and it's so painfully perceptive. And I believe it's a true character study of a 17-year-old who barrels through everyday boundaries, or tries to, in her desperate attempt to just feel wanted and to feel real and loved, And that's why it really hits for me. After reading the book twice, I've started to see myself in a lot of the characters in the story. I see myself a lot in Waldo, because the big metaphor is that Waldo is ravenous, she's hungry, and she's starved for this affection and this deep longing sense of connection with somebody. And having that with her creative writing teacher, I can't relate to it identically. I've never fallen in love with like somebody much, much older than me or one of my teachers, but that desperate need to be wanted and kind of putting yourself in a position to do whatever it takes to get it and to feel that and doing all the things to fill the void. I know a lot of instances in the book show Waldo exercising her coping skills in a really unhealthy way, like going online and buying a whole bunch of clothes and things that she doesn't need. She has a part-time job at Victoria's Secret, and with her little bit of money that she has, she spends all of it buying things she doesn't need, all to get this sense of gratification. And she also has this constant need for sex or to feel good physically. And those are things that I can totally understand. I have ADHD. I have this sense of wanting to have instant gratification, whether it's like, the dopamines of buying things, or maybe fulfilling that physical need with sex or any kind of sexual tension behavior. So I can understand and relate to it in that point. And that's another reason why I love this book so much. It tells the uncomfortable truth. It's uncomfortable because it's so real. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. I'm having a hard time really verbalizing it, but it's uncomfortable in that sense of it's, she's not deliberately trying to make you feel that way. It's uncomfortable because it kind of unravels this truth about yourself, if that makes sense. It's messy, it's real, it's authentic, and I absolutely love it. And oddly enough, I see myself as well in the creative writing teacher, Mr. Corgi. Of course, like I don't see myself in those really awful ways, but I do see myself in the insecurity and that longing and feeling like life hasn't turned out the way that you had hoped, and unmanaged vulnerability. When he's introduced into the story, I think one of the first things he says to Waldo and her class is that he's a failure. And he goes on this long spiel about, I'm a failure. I wanted to do this, this, and this, but then I ended up becoming a creative writing teacher. And I wanted to be honest and vulnerable with you guys because I expect the same from you. I feel that same sense of insecurity and that same sense of longing and just like feeling like my life is not where it should be and having expectations and it not being where you want it to be. I'm just repeating myself at this point. I think you get what I'm saying. I can see the insecurity in this man, and I don't excuse, this person's behavior. However, I can see how some people's insecurities and behaviors can lead them into doing bad things. I can see how some people can do that, if that makes sense. But ultimately, the creative writing teacher, he is a very interesting character because his vulnerability leaks and the power imbalance, I think, truly matters. And it's so brave of Jennette McCurdy to write this character so authentically and not so black and white. I think it kind of also adds to the uncomfortable reality of the story that she created the character Mr. Corgi to be a realistic kind of, I don't know, how do I put it? He's not like a predator in the sense of like, oh, he's out there preying on children and doing this and doing all these bad things that you would expect like a child predator to do. No, he is a regular man, a regular creative writing teacher in high school who happened to make a really huge mistake. Of course, it's awful. We don't excuse that behavior, but he's not your black and white definition of a villain. And it's so interesting. It's so interesting talking about it because when we were there with Jennette McCurdy, we got to hear her talk about the process of writing the story. And she said something to the effect of, when she was writing the first drafts of this book, she was very protective of Waldo. And Mr. Corgi was starting to become more of like a black and white villain. And she had to stop herself and go back and almost uncomfortably have sympathy for this character. She said this, and I'm like, whoa. That shit blows my mind. Like this is a real person. This is a real character. I mean, it's not. It's fiction. It's a novel. But being able to have sympathy for this character and then write him so authentically and in an uncomfortably realistic way, that takes guts, dude. That takes so much courage. And these characters are all well-rounded in all their fucked up, uncomfortable insecurities, and it's just wonderful. It's so wonderful and a very good read. But if you want to get the book, it's out right now. The audiobook is on Audible. It's around like 4 hours long if you want to listen to it. I can't recommend it enough. But I also want to talk about getting to see Jennette McCurdy in person. Last Wednesday, actually, my boyfriend Juan and my best friend Jess and myself, we got to go see Jennette McCurdy live in person during her book tour. And I've never been to a book tour before. I didn't really know what to expect, but I read the book prior, read it twice prior. It was in this beautiful theater in Los Angeles, and there was a lot of people. It was a huge turnout. It was so gorgeous, such a lovely night. We get there and we all got pre-signed copies of the book. So right now I'm holding my signed copy of the book by Jennette, and it just feels more meaningful. I mean, getting to read the book prior and then having a signed copy of it. Like, dude, she held this. That's so sick. And she wrote this. That's so fucking dope. I'm very extremely sentimental and I just can't get enough of it. But this conversation was very interesting. So we didn't actually get to like meet her or like ask her questions. Although I did ask her a question. They sent us an email like a couple weeks prior asking us to submit questions that the moderator of this event would read out loud on stage. They didn't answer my question, but I mean, it's fine. It's totally fine. My question wasn't that great anyways, but we got to sit down in this theater and they had a moderator asking her questions and talking about the writing process of the story and what it was like to really shape everything. And then they also talked about Jennette's Apple TV Plus adaptation of her first book, which was her memoir called I'm Glad My Mom Died. Oh, that book that book is so fucking good. That book is so amazing. I highly recommend you guys read that book as well. I mean, I kind of like it more than this one, but still, this one is really fucking good too. But no, she had a lot of good points. I remember, I think I mentioned it earlier, but talking about how she had to go back and rewrite the first draft of this book because she was very protective of the main character Waldo, and the teacher, Mr. Corgi, was starting to become more of like a black and white type of villain. And she said, it was uncomfortable to have sympathy for this man and write him as authentically and real as possible, and all that nuance and insecurity. Dude, she talked about this thing that really stuck with me. She talks about having the feeling of rage and how it's a very underrated feeling and how people really need to allow themselves to feel rage. I'm like, that is such an interesting idea. I think because growing up, and she talks a lot about like how women are kind of forced to keep their emotions like low and quiet to appease others. But this is something that I feel like I have been conditioned to do as well. Keep my feelings hidden to not stir problems or cause trouble. But I think that she's onto something with having rage, and rage being such a very valuable emotion. I think it's something that needs to be talked about more, something that needs to be felt more. And I can't get enough of that. I love that. I love that she brought that up. She also talks about how nuance is such an interesting thing that isn't talked about much, which is kind of, I think, at the heart of the story, there's a lot of fucking nuance. It's not black and white characters. It's not like the girl who gets groomed by her creative writing teacher. It's about a girl who does X, Y, and Z, who's really fucking insecure and is dissected to a very uncomfortable degree. And I'm pretty sure that you as the reader can find a lot of yourself in her as well, if that makes sense. I cannot verbalize it the same way that she did, but it was so well said and so wonderful. Especially the part about rage. I can't get over the idea of that. It was such a wonderful conversation to be had. And also, too, when she was talking about the Apple TV Plus adaptation of her first book, I'm Glad My Mom Died, she talks about how Jennifer Aniston is supposed to be in this new series. And she was very blunt and honest with us and said that the process of adapting a book to TV, well, this process specifically has been shitty. She was so blunt with us. She's like, it's awful. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. It's a nightmare. Well, she didn't say it was a nightmare, but like she said it was just really bad. And oh, dude, like there was the entire conversation was very heart to heart. Like it was this very emotional, profound connection between her and then the audience, and we all really felt her, like her disappointment and her anger, honestly her rage. We felt her rage and we all kind of like laughed at it. But dude, this bitch is so goddamn real. Jennette McCurdy is so fucking real, and I cannot get enough of her. Another thing that I remember Jennette talking about was the feeling of being uncomfortable being a worthwhile feeling. And if it's not uncomfortable, it's not really much of a conversation to be had, which I think kind of lends to the whole idea of the story because, her being able to express and talk about the uncomfortable thing really makes us think, it speaks to the uncomfortable truths of our own reality. It's only uncomfortable because it is so goddamn real, which is so true. Oh my God, so accurate. And hearing this woman talk about all this shit is so profoundly wonderful. And dude, I can get emotional thinking about the entire experience. And at the end of the entire conversation, she took a moment to talk to the audience and tell us all, I really appreciate you guys for being here. And I have this sense of connection with all of you. And everyone just started clapping. And she got emotional. And it started to get kind of quiet. I raised my hand and I said, I love you so much. And she looks in my general direction, and she puts her hand over her heart and gets emotional too. And like, I know I'm reaching. I know I'm totally delusional and reaching, but I'm like, I know she heard me. And being in the same room as this woman and having this deep connection, like, I love you. I love what you're doing. And this story is so well written, and it inspires me to want to talk about the uncomfortable things. That's the premise of this podcast. talking about the uncomfortable things, whether I'm talking about, my sexual abuse, talking about my toxic cycles with previous exes, talking about having a crush on somebody and wanting to be with them. There's so much to be said in all the uncomfortable, messy nuance. And I want to talk about these things. I want to have the hard conversations. I want to get to the nitty gritty, and I want to be as open as possible for myself and also for you guys too, because why not? Why the fuck not? So it was a wonderful time. Going to see Jennette McCurdy in person was wonderful. My boyfriend and then my friend Jessica, we all had a wonderful time, and then we went out for dinner afterward. I don't know. I can't get over it. This book is wonderful. I'm really inspired by Jennette McCurdy, and so yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening. I feel like I only scratched the surface on this book and the experience. But yeah, I love you guys. I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Please See Above podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Eric Appleseed. I'm Eric Ornelas, the creator, executive producer, and host of Please See Above. This podcast is recorded in Glendora, California. Music is by Juan Avitia. Be sure to check out new episodes every Wednesday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.